So back with another video, what I like to call the clean out the freezer special. Found that my upright freezer out in the garage needs a new seal, and since there is more than a little bit of material in there, including ribs, briskets, and so on, it's time to do a little bit of, not even spring cleaning, winter cleaning. This is a rack that's been in there for a while, probably needs to come out anyway. Purchased back in May of 2020. From HEB. Obviously now it's a little bit more than 6 months old. No freezer burn whatsoever. Cryovac did its job. You know, here in Texas, HEB probably does have the best meats. And if you're looking nationally, you're probably looking at some places like Publix in the Southeast. You're perhaps looking at, I don't know, places like Kroger in certain areas. Definitely better than just your average Smithfield. One, there's no solution added to these. Number two, they source reasonably locally, and that's always something I like to support if I can. I tend to, when I'm not doing something fancy, I like to do mine almost like my grandfather did when I was growing up, more of a backyard style. And I do like to trim a little bit of the fat off, mainly just because it doesn't need to be there. Nothing too bad here, just a little bit of surface fat that probably needs to come off. So trim that up just a wee bit. And got 4 racks to do, so I'm just going to show one rack and get the rest of these in the fridge for roughly a 12-hour ride before they go in the smoker tomorrow. My real purpose doing this, besides just cleaning out the freezer, is the fact that I do want to test a new rub I'm working on. Just nicknaming it, calling it Texas Red Dirt, kind of after the country style that's popular in Texas near the Red River and up in Oklahoma. This one's pretty good. I'm not going to bother stripping off the membrane on the back. And the reason being is because it doesn't bother me. I know that in terms of spices and smoke penetrating, if you're doing competition, that's a big deal. For me, I kind of like the chew that comes with it. That's a weird thing, but it's pretty simple for me. I do score each one beneath each rib and then just do a quick crosshatch. Not deep, just enough to score it down to where there can be a little bit of penetration. Get a little bit more fat off here off the edge. You know, I tend to leave the flap on as well, unless I'm trying to make these look super pretty, if I'm gifting them to someone or whatever else. To me, it's meat that's tasty, and unless it's going to act as some sort of, you know, if it's unsightly, if it's too small, if it's going to burn. If I were going to finish these on the grill, I probably would take the time to remove it. But in this case, it's not too bad. Let's see here. Finish that up. Overall, not too shabby. So what I found is that these little bus tubs, you know, back when I was in college, one of the ways I kept a roof over my head and tuition payments coming and so on was acting as a bouncer and eventually a bartender. And I found these little bus tubs come in super handy for barbecue as well. It's pretty obvious, I think, for the average person. And yes, in terms of cross-contamination, I'm going to wash my hands after all this is over, and the bottles as well. But I find that they work well because it just keeps me from getting seasonings all over my kitchen. So this is a little bit of Grey Poupon I had left over from doing a part of my au jus and a horseradish sauce for a Christmas prime rib smoke. Figured go ahead and burn it up because I'm not a huge fan of it, and the taste won't come through in the smoke process here. Pardon me while I wash up. So, you know, is there a need to put seasonings on the back? It doesn't hurt. That's always my logic. This is experimental rub I'm working on. I changed paprika, going with a sweet smoked paprika that HEB does sell by the pound locally. And it's always nice to be able to get spices that aren't just thrown in there with all sorts of stabilizers and so on. Color is beautiful. The smell is good. Pretty close to my original. I'm probably going to add in probably a 50-50 mix of ancho and a conventional light chili powder or a fancy chili powder next time. But as far as this one goes, the smell and the taste of it, just, you know, on the tongue, it hits the right spots. Not overly sweet. I did use brown sugar in this, like most people do with the sweeter rib rub or pork rub. But one thing I do want to do for the next go round is try some molasses powder. I ordered it I love the flavor of molasses when it comes to pork. I don't know why. It's not really that common as far as I can tell. I mean, yes, brown sugar is, but molasses in and of itself, I mean, there have been times I've used it as a binding agent and loved the crust that it helped impart because of the sugar content, but also the flavor and the color that it provides. For beef ribs, I do use unsulfured molasses because, one, I think it does help with bark development, but two, again, just that bare hint of sweetness that's not in your face in the background is always nice. So there's my slather. Luckily, I've hoarded a whole bunch of paper towels, so I'm not too worried about using too many of them. This is mainly just to get through this quickly so the video doesn't drag, but putting molasses on ribs, you know, I enjoy it, but sometimes it does burn just a bit too much. There's almost like a burnt caramel or burnt sugar flavor in the background, even though it hasn't burned whatsoever. And I don't know whether that's the interaction of the smoke and the molasses or just something unique about the length of time that it's exposed to a constant heat source. So, a little bit more there. So one of the things that I do want to put in the video is a choice I made. I bought from a restaurant supply store, and that is a restaurant size roll of cling film. Now, the reason this is a big deal is because most cling film that's sold in grocery stores is incredibly flimsy, and it's also just a little too narrow. I purchase double length paper that I use for briskets from a restaurant supply store. I purchased the exact same thing for cling film. It's tougher, it's easier to cut, and when it says no more wasted film, it's kind of accurate. Why? Because it's a simple act to wrap for a ride through the fridge overnight. So I've got 3 more racks to do. I'll get these stored up, put it in the fridge, and crank up a cook for tomorrow. So at least for now, I'm liking, again, the flavor of the rib. I'm liking the color of the rib. I even toyed with the idea of putting some, you know, mixing the types of paprikas and so on. But I really do think the smoked sweet paprika is the way to go. We'll see how it turns out. So we'll pick back up once we're getting ready to load these in the smoker. Okay, we're back. I've already put in 3 of the racks that we're doing today and unwrapping the first. I actually do put these ribs in cold on this occasion. Part of it is time management, but also, it, you know, whether it's an old wives' tale or not, it does pick up a little bit more smoke through the process. And so I've got these 4 racks laid out. This would be on the middle of the Pro Shelves racks. There's fresh foil in there as well. And I do want to hit it with just a little bit of rub where it rubbed off as I was pulling it out. And then I'm going to run a program, a preset, using the Blaz'n app just to make sure that the app is doing what I think it can do. So not too much, and part of the reason is because I don't want to waste the rub, but number 2, it actually does burn a bit once it gets down to the pan itself. So these are pretty good. You can see that the rub quality held up well. I love the color it's giving them. I think it's going to be a pretty good process. As far as turning it on, getting it cranking, I always started at 175. And ultimately, in terms of what we're doing, it's always going to be something where you adjust based on look, on feel. In this case, the program I've set is preheating to 175, 45 minutes at a smoke phase, then up to 235 for 4 hours, 45 minutes. I'll probably start checking it at 4 hours, 15 minutes. I may rotate the racks a bit, but we'll see where it goes. So at this point, start grilling, and we're pretty much ready to go. The ribs themselves, again, the proof will be in the pudding. Remember that I did not strip off the membrane on the back. If it's for competition, I can see it, but I don't find that it really devalues the process, especially when you hold these ribs at least overnight with your seasoning on there. These are, relatively speaking, lower salt ribs. I'm not a huge fan of it. I got COVID back in April, and most of my tolerance for salty swings between I can't taste it at all to, oh God, it's way too salty. So this, I'm kind of erring on the side of caution. It's already coming up to temp a little bit. I can see the temp rising to 78. I'm going to go ahead and shut the grill at this point and let the Blaz'n do its thing. In terms of temp management, plenty of pellets in here. I don't expect to have to do anything else. Right now I'm running a 2-to-1 blend of basically the comp blend from Lumberjack, and then that one, the 2-to-1 ratio, the one is the char grill, or the char hickory pellets rather. Already can smell the smoke starting to drop, freshly cleaned out in terms of the ease of access, in terms of the burn pot. I will say that over here you can see that I keep a jar in there as part of the drip pan. It keeps the bucket itself from overflowing with grease. I can dispose of that with a lid, just throw it out. One neat little thing I'd recommend if you haven't done this, if you own a Blaz'n, down here on the little handle that locks the pull-out burn pot in place, I attached some little magnets. I saw that on one of the YouTube videos for somebody else who owns a Blaz'n. Comes off, you stick it right here, it stays in place, that way you don't lose it. I think it's a good system. Again, the amount of smoke that's coming out right now on a very cool day, very crisp, windy day here in Texas, it does its thing. So we'll check back in just a bit once I get all this cleaned up, and hopefully in just about 5.5 hours, I will have some tasty ribs. Y'all take care. So one of the benefits of having a back patio with a roof on it, where I've got plenty of room to keep my smoker away from the walls and so on, is the fact that even when it pours down rain, and in Texas it's pretty much whenever it decides to, even with some blue sky, the rain's coming down. But the good news is it does not appear to be interrupting the rib cook, and so far they're looking a little bit good. I probably will be doing a bit of a spritz in just a bit. They're looking good so far. Obviously we're just barely into the cook. I did bump the temp to 240 because I want to get them done a little bit more quickly. I think I'll gin up a quick 1-to-1 ratio of apple cider vinegar and apple juice to spritz these things with, but so far looking good. Okay, time for a bit of a spritz. Again, I did go ahead and make a quick 1-to-1 ratio apple cider vinegar and apple juice. Let's see how they're looking. Not too bad. I'm liking the way this new rub is caramelizing. I probably, in about another 30 to 45 minutes, I'll do another spritz, and I'll probably swap the ribs around just a bit. This one over here is a bit meatier. That's why I put it closer to the fire, or rather to the smokestack, because again, it will get slightly higher heat on that side by about 10 degrees has been my measurement on a pretty conventional basis. I have not tested right to left differentiation since I put in the new sear kit, which may have affected it. I noticed that the temperature is actually a little bit different. It's a 5-degree variance now, nothing too terribly to be concerned with, so 10 degrees total. I think these are looking pretty dang good. All right, we'll be back in a bit. All right, so should be right where the ribs need to be. In Texas on stormy nights, it gets dark quick. We are right at 190, it looks like. And that's where they're gonna get pulled. So overall, the color on these things is pretty awesome. I am extremely happy with that. We'll kind of see how things go. Let's see if I can get some more light in there for you. Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of the elements, so we'll take this back up inside. All right, so looks like they came up pretty well. This is one of the smaller racks, and it's one of the ones that I thought looked the best. Pullback on the bones is quite nice. And let's see how it looks. I always find it easier to flip and do it. So we'll get a good look at these things. I'm not a fan of just that fall off the bone thing. I'm a perfect bite guy. I think that's pretty fair. If I go to a barbecue restaurant here in Texas, I'm always a center cut kind of person. Not just because of the meat, because I think that in terms of the flavor profile, getting into the center of the meat, it balances the smoke with a little bit of the rendering that takes place. It creates such a beautiful caramelized flavor. So smell on these things are great. I think I like the new rub. I may make a few tweaks. Of course, that's always a flavor profile. So let's take a look at these suckers. All right. Bit of a smoke ring. Not incredibly pronounced. Smell is delicious. Or smell is outstanding, I should say. Probably don't know until I taste. They say we eat with your eyes first. I think it's a good-looking exterior. There's no sauce, no glaze on these things. Spritzed it roughly every 30 to 40 minutes with that 1-to-1 blend of apple juice and apple cider vinegar. So we'll see. The taste will be key. Oh, okay, yeah. I do like that. I think a touch more salt in the rub for the next go around when I kind of make it official. This is really just an alpha test, not even a beta. Muted sweetness, which I like. I think maybe a heavier hand with the black pepper would be in order. Maybe a touch more cayenne. But this is a nice first step. I think I like the omission of the onion powder. Good rib. Overall, I am happy with this. Another cook in the books. I'll get this uploaded to YouTube in short order. Nothing special about this one. I will say that the preset from the new app for Blaz'n worked perfectly. As far as these ribs, not bad for a let's clean out the freezer moment. So, hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.